Hey everyone, welcome back to the third part of our FPS player movement series. In this video, we're going to dive into some advanced player movement techniques, specifically jump and crouch mechanics. If you missed the earlier parts of this series, I've linked them in the description below, so be sure to check them out. And of course, if you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on future videos. Alright, let's get started. Let's open the player controller script and create several public variables. Create a float variable named crouchHeight. This variable will control the player's height when they are crouched. Create another float variable named standingHeight. This will define the player's default standing height. Create a float variable named jumpHeight. This will control how high the player can jump. Create a float variable named gravity. This variable will determine the gravity force applied to the player, both when they are grounded and when they are jumping. Create a float variable named jumpSmoothness. This will control how smoothly the player's jump performs. Now, let's create some private variables. Create a bool variable named isJumping. This variable will be used to check whether the player is currently jumping. Create a bool variable named isGrounded. This will be used to check if the player is grounded. Create another bool variable named isCrouching. This will be used to check if the player is currently crouching. Create a float variable named verticalVelocity. This will be used to set the player's velocity along the vertical axis. Create another float variable named originalYPosition. This will store the player's original Y position, before jumping or crouching. Create a float variable named targetYPosition. This will be used to set the target position when the player jumps. Let's create private method named handleJumping, which handles the entire jump and gravity system. It checks for jump input, applies smooth jumping and falling, and ensures that the player is grounded when they land. It also manages gravity during the fall and resets vertical velocity when grounded. Let's create another method named startJump, which is called when player is grounded, keyboard spacebar key is pressed and isJumping is false. In start jump method I am setting isJumping variables value to true, set targetYPosition set to transform.position.y plus jumpHeight and set vertical velocity to 0. Let's call start jump method in handle jumping when player is grounded, keyboard's spacebar key is pressed and player is not jumped. Now if player is jumping then update player's y-axis by multiplying jumpSmoothness with targetYPosition. Now if player is reached to the target jumping height then let's reset isJumping and isGrounded variables. Now, let's check if the player has jumped and, if so, return them to the ground by updating the vertical velocity. If the player is already grounded then set vertical velocity to 0. Now, let's check if the player has already reached the ground. If so, set the player's position, reset the vertical velocity, and set the isGrounded variable to true. To implement the crouch functionality, I will create a coroutine called resizePlayerHeight, which will accept a float parameter, targetHeight, to adjust the player's height dynamically. In this coroutine, I will first retrieve the player's current height and store it in a float variable named currentHeight. Then, I will set the duration for resizing to 0.25 seconds and store this value in a float variable called timeToResize. Finally, I will create a float variable named timer and initialize it to 0. While the timer is less than timeToResize, I will update the player's height by interpolating between the current height and the target height based on the timer value. The timer will then be incremented by time.deltaTime, and the loop will return until the condition is met. Next, I will assign the updated height to the player and set the isCrouching variable to the target height and the crouch height. I am now creating a private void method called handleCrouching, in which I will check for input from the keyboard to see if the left control key is pressed, and verify that the player is not jumping. Next, I'll check whether the player is standing. If the player is not standing, I'll set the player's height to the standing height by calling the resize player height coroutine and passing the standing height as the target. Otherwise, I'll set the player's height to the crouch height. Now, let's call the newly created methods handle crouching and handle jumping within the update method. Now, save the script and return to the Unity editor to test the jumping and crouching functionality. The functionality is working as expected. To customize the jump height and crouch height, you can adjust the values for standing height, jump height, crouch height, and jump smoothness directly in the inspector window. I hope you enjoyed the video and gained some valuable insights. In the next part, I'll be implementing the shooting mechanics, so stay tuned and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Your support inspires us to bring you more exciting content. Thank you, and we'll see you again in the next video.